attendees for joining this meeting. And before I begin the presentation, I wanted to mention that throughout the webinar, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A if you have any, and then we'll be monitoring that at the end of the webinar. But we will go ahead and get started right now. So my name is Alina, and I am one of the peer consultants at SARC, and I'm joined with Nayeli, and maybe she can introduce herself too.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Nayeli Lopez and I am a peer consultant here at SARC. And I'll go ahead and pass it on to Alina again.
Thank you so much, Nayeli. So again, today we are going to talk a little bit about how to get started with research and provide you some action items and steps to kind of get started as well on your own. So next slide, please. All right, so the first step is understanding what academia is and what academic research involves. So academia is a community that pursues research, education, and scholarship. And what is research? Research is a way to study unanswered questions and to solve problems scientifically. So I know that for myself personally, like coming out of high school especially, I thought research involved people wearing lab coats and working with like chemicals and like the biology or chemical labs. But I actually learned that research can be done in many other fields as well. So the School of Social Sciences as well. And there's a lot of different things that we're able to study. So because we're within the School of Social Sciences, of course, it will revolve around social, political, clinical, and psychological topics, but there are also many other things that you can study. For example, I am part of a research lab in the School of Biological Sciences, and there I study like brain anatomy. But to go over like generally what two main types of research include. Firstly, there is qualitative research. So that involves listening to people's stories through interviews, through observation or survey data. So usually researchers could send out like a questionnaire, for example, or conduct interviews like in person or virtually right now to kind of understand their experiences. In terms of quantitative research, this involves researchers using numbers and data to define outcomes or trends. So some examples of this could be measuring reaction time in milliseconds, or maybe obtaining like the proportion correct of answers to some task or some test. And action items for this step one is to take classes to learn more. So like for my experience, I didn't know a lot about what research actually involves, but I took a lot of courses. I am part of the psychology honors program to kind of learn more about research methods. And there's also a lot of online resources that you can use as well. Next slide, please. And I wanted to start this presentation with some definitions. So firstly, academic research again is the investigation and writing based upon the idea of scientific inquiry. So a lot of the times research begins with a question. So either a question about the world or something that we don't yet know about like humans. And being able to investigate that through creating hypotheses and then using methodologies to kind of investigate that. And then after collecting data, you're able to write about it, publish it in a journal or an article. Secondly, a research lab is a space organized by a faculty member to conduct scientific research. So currently, like I mentioned earlier, I'm part of one of the biosci labs, and my lab specifically does work in spatial neuroscience and navigation. So, and the lab space is like organized by my faculty mentor. And thirdly, independent study is another way to get involved in research if you have a question yourself that you want to answer. So it allows a student to create a course with an instructor and to receive credit for their research or thesis experience. So this is really great for students who have their individual interest in a topic, and It's different from joining a research lab because when you join a research lab, you tend to hop onto a research project that already exists, something that the faculty member or different lab managers or grad students are currently working on. But independent study is where you kind of bring your own ideas and then find a mentor to help you with that. So fourthly, we have principal investigator, and for shorthand, you can call it PI. And this is the leader of the lab and is usually a faculty member. And number 5 is research assistant. So that's kind of my role as the undergraduate research assistant in the lab. And we're students who join existing labs to help with aspects of the lab's research. And we also have paper, which is an article that's published and is considered scholarly work. And I will hand it off to Nayeli.
Thank you, Alina. So after going off over important terms, it's important for your next step to be defining your interests. So anything that you might want to start researching about. And here we start off by brainstorming questions about fields, topics of interest. And we can start off by asking ourselves certain questions. So what are some things that you've heard in your courses that interest you? That could be a starter, you know? Oh, I remember something from this specific class when we had to write a journal entry about it, and you know, you stayed wondering more about it. That's something that could get started off as well. If you find something interesting in what your professors teach, like related to a certain course, or what would I research, how your research will benefit graduate school, if that's something you're interested in doing in the future. It can be like a starter to develop your thesis for graduate school. How will your research contribute to the future of this discipline? So if you're a psychology major and you know doing research in psychology, how is that gonna help that field? You know, you're trying to contribute something to advance the field. And then if there's a specific problem or issue that you're interested in, how are you going to explore that or solve it? So those are just some questions that you might want to answer when you're starting to think about a certain topic. Of course, there's a lot more to consider. These are just some that we wanted to put out here. You can find more questions of guidance in our website. And then some action items that you might want to start doing just to, you know, get things done on paper is creating a spreadsheet or a document where you track your interest. Just, you know, so you could go back and edit, you know, maybe you're not as interested in some as you thought you would be. So that's just something to have down. And then your next step would be to start getting familiar with articles or existing literature, you know, so start reading articles related to your topic. You can start off with 2 to 3 topics that interest you, you know, getting access to journals, articles, news, and then you can go ahead and also be guided through the keywords. If you're familiar with researching, you know, through your lower division writing courses, you know, you got to start using the databases provided by UCI. So you get to start off by using keywords, and then you can also identify any staff or professors that are currently studying the topic of interest, and you can actually look through the link right here. We have the faculty.uci.edu, which is a directory where you are able to read more about staff and professors and what, you know, their interests are, any work that they're doing. And that's when you can also start getting guided to seeking a mentor. Some other sites we have that might be useful for you are Google Scholar and just the UCI libraries as well. You know, you want to start reading and annotating articles, getting familiar with any theories that you might be able to apply to your research. And then our next step would be to seek a mentor. So you want to have someone who is going to be able to guide you through your research, especially if research is something that is new to you and you don't have much experience about it. You want to find someone who, you know, has a level of expertise and is going to be able to be your mentor. So to prepare, you want to, you know, be informed before you meet with your mentor. So you want to read articles, be familiar with the subject you're interested in, and then you want to be able to discuss certain things when you meet with the potential mentor. And some things might include working on a project proposal, maybe they know of existing opportunities for research on campus, since they know other professors, and if it's all under the School of Social Sciences, it's more than likely that they know. And then there's opportunities for labs or paid opportunities. So if you're not going to get paid, maybe there's opportunity for earning units, so you get some type of credit. um, they can also help you with maybe reviewing your literature reviews and helping you find research material. You can also narrow or broaden your research when you're talking to someone who has the experience in this. So some action items that you want to consider for this is meeting with your professors. It could be after class, before class, during office hours, or if you just want to, have like a whole separate meeting where you go and chat with them to have that one-on-one experience. There's also the honors program, which you're free to check out. We also have the social science 199 course, and the website at Europe has a sample email template, which could be of guidance to, start to send off that email to a potential mentor you have in mind. Um, and if for some reason research is not something you want to do through the school year, there is like an opportunity during summer. It's called SERP. So that's another thing we can look into. On our website, we do have all these ways you can get involved linked there. But just know that we are always open to having, a consultation with you. We have a lot of peer consultants here at SARC, and research is one of the topics we cover. If you feel like you would get more benefit one-on-one, we also have graduate students here at SARC that are, have the experience, are more than happy to share as well. If you have any questions, this is the time for you to, feel free to ask any questions. We can go back to anything if you wanted us to expand on anything.
And also we have Selena here. Maybe Selena, you can introduce yourself a little bit and then talk about your experience in research.
Sure. Hi, so my name is Selena. I am a fifth-year graduate student in the sociology department at UCI. I guess, so research is like an inherent part of most graduate school programs. So I am doing research. I'm doing my own research, which is to progress, into my dissertation. That will hopefully actually be getting done like this year. And if anyone's, I guess, so the topic is international environmental treaties and their ratifications. And then I am also a graduate researcher for, I think, what is technically a lab in the business school. And I do solely quantitative research. I do have some knowledge about qualitative, but yeah.
Thank you so much for your introduction. And again, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A if you have any. Like if you have questions about maybe our experiences in research too, you can definitely ask that in the chat or in the Q&A.
I also wanted to add on that there is going to be a research fair approaching, and you might be questioning how research might work in this remote environment we are in. And I think that would be a great opportunity to keep an eye out. We will be sending out more information regarding that after this webinar. But if you have any questions regarding that, how remote, research might look like, we can also provide more information about that. I'm not sure if I can see the Q&A or if there's anything, because I have like the screen, but if there's any questions, feel free to like bring them up.
Yeah, so one of the questions right now that we got is, will the slides be uploaded? So yes, the slides will be sent out to you all in a follow-up email, and then this is also recorded, so this will be posted on our YouTube channel for SARC. So feel free to check it out on there, and we will send you all this information by email afterwards. And another question that we received is, would you recommend first being a research assistant and then venturing into independent study research as an undergrad? I'm wondering about the typical timeline for doing research. I'm currently a third-year undergrad in psychology.
So I feel like I can share a little bit on that.
Sure.
So I was a research assistant for 1 quarter. It was my second year spring quarter. No, actually my third year. And I feel like I learned like the basics, you know. I kind of got familiar with the environment of a research lab, got to talk to people who were actually conducting the research. And I feel like it helped now that I'm taking like this year-long course regarding research, like it has helped a lot. You know, it's gonna give you that foundation, gonna get your foot in the door, you know. When you start as a research assistant, you get to network with people and you may come across another lab that might interest you. So there's a lot of benefits. I mean, it's not like you would lose anything in being a research assistant. I feel like it would give you a great experience. And but it's really up to you on what you want to get out of it. But that's just on my end.
Yeah, I could also chime in on that a little. So, in terms of like things that will look good for like graduate school or just in terms of like research experience, being a part of a lab is probably going to be the best experience you can have as an undergraduate. But I will say it's also very hard to like, it's not a lot of professors necessarily even have labs. And even if they did have labs, they're not necessarily accepting undergraduates. So it can be a little hard to find these opportunities. And so if you can find one, that's absolutely great. And I think like you were saying, like it's a really good foundation. You get a lot of resources from being a part of a lab. And so it's definitely a good thing to jump into if you get that opportunity. But if you don't get that opportunity, which I think is probably going to be the boat that a lot of people are in, then doing independent research is also a really great alternative. But I don't think that there needs to be any order. Like the order of which one you do first doesn't really matter. I would say just take the opportunities that you have available to you. And also for the timeline of doing research, that is totally dependent on your topic. It is totally possible to get a project done in a year. So say the question I think mentioned their third year. You could get that done in your third year and get a paper out in that time, but it depends on what the subject is. There are projects that take 10 years to complete. There are projects that take, 5 years or 3 years. And there are projects that get rushed along because they're like short-term projects that get done in like a few months, but it just depends on what you're doing. So yeah, I would say know like what your personal timeline is of what you want to get done, and then you can adjust your research project to that scope.
Yeah, thank you so much for that insight. I think also I wanted to quickly add that because we're in a remote setting right now, like it might be harder to join a lab in particular. So I think like trying to see if there's any way to do independent study research would also be helpful, especially during this time. But there are definitely some opportunities still. I know that my faculty mentor right now is like starting to like get her projects started again, like after COVID started and like the lab was closed for a bit. I think there are probably a lot of other professors on the same boat where they're trying to like start up their research again right now. But we do have another question in the chat. How can I get in touch with the other schools' research programs?
That's a good question. I feel like the first thing that comes up to mind is, since if it's a different school, you most likely won't be able to get an appointment with an academic advisor. So your best shot would be to do a walk-in. with a peer academic advisor, and they're students like us, and most likely they're gonna have some type of experience or knowledge regarding research, and that could be like a good point person to um, get you more informed about the specific school you're interested in. Um, I can speak personally on experience for the School of Education. So if that's something that for some reason was of your interest, like more than happy to schedule a consultation with you and inform you more about it. But that's like the first thing that comes up to mind, just like peer academic advisors at certain schools, if it's outside of social sciences, like that could be a great starting point. And here at SARC too, we are more than happy to help you, even if it's outside of social science, we can help you be able to explore the directory for stuff.
Yeah, and I think also there's a lot of resources online. So just maybe even like typing up the school and then typing up research opportunities or research programs on Google, and something will definitely come up. You can always look at the faculty directory website as well, and there you should hopefully be able to see like what each faculty is studying for their own research. So hopefully that will give you kind of some like insight on maybe some interests that might align with your own, and getting started with like contacting faculty as well in terms of like um, learning about what research programs exist. And we have another question. So they said, Selena mentioned that she was in a lab within the School of Business. Is research and becoming an assistant within the business field as common as other fields like science?
So I can answer that. Yeah, so I think it's gonna depend on like the program. So business is a little bit different. You have obviously like MBA programs and stuff that they're gonna be a little more geared towards like an actual occupation, and towards like work outside of academia. And in that case, having a lab or doing research like that might not be as much of the focus. However, you also are going to have like PhD students in the business school, especially ones doing like economics. That's totally going to be as common within business itself. So you are going to have researchers in business. It is going to be as common as like another field because it does exist. Are there as many researchers? That I don't know. And it's not always, I think one thing within the social sciences is that the research is not always as obviously related to the topic as you would think. So what I'm doing in my lab is researching how mentorship among actual like PhD students and faculty members, like early career faculty members, kind of influences their publication later on. And so like it doesn't seem necessarily obviously related to business, but it's still housed within the business school. And so it's very dependent on who are the professors in the business school or that field, and like, are they doing research and what the topic is on? So yeah, I would say for business, like for a business school, you are going to have researchers in it and there are going to be research projects, but it depends on the program you're looking at and which faculty members you're talking about.
Yeah, and these are really great questions. Currently, we don't have any more questions in the Q&A, but feel free to send any last minute questions that you may have. Um, Otherwise, I think we can end here.
Yes. If there's not any other further questions, once again, thank you so much for joining us today. Here are some ways that you can stay connected with us. Our appointment system at sarc.socialsci.uci.edu, our email here as well. We have Zoom appointments when you schedule with us, and we are on social media, Instagram, Facebook at UC Irvine SARC. So feel free to follow us for any updates. We try to post as much as we can regarding our events.
All right, so I don't see any more questions in the chat. If possible, maybe I can pass it off to Carissa to kind of wrap things up.
Sure. Thank you so much, everyone. And, like Nayeli said, please come meet with a graduate student advisor or a peer consultant to take the next step in terms of your research plans and or graduate school plans. But we'll hopefully we'll see you soon at the next webinar. Take care.